Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Tanya, or TitaniumBuilt, whichever you want to call me. I did say hi to some people in the chat. I saw some people were in here earlier. So hello, good evening, everybody. Hopefully you guys are having a really good weekend and a good Sunday, hopefully a good Sunday evening, rounding off your week on a good note. Hello, Terry Lewis. Hello, Kelly D. Good evening, everyone. Like I said, if you guys could hit the like button as you guys are coming in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. I do have it on subscriber only mode in the chat only because, you know, of bots and things like that. But if you would just like the video, also don't forget to subscribe. Let me go ahead and turn my camera on here. And I'm going to go ahead and put this up here too because I'm going to read over some of this stuff here in a moment. But we are going to talk about Alex Murdaugh this evening. So we're going to switch gears from the last two lives. The last couple lives we've been doing Idaho 4. So we're just switching it up. So that way we're all fresh, you know, fresh in our minds, which is always good to, you know, see what's going on. I think I can hear the birds actually outside flying, like those big geese. So I was going to play like one video. I was going to play two videos tonight, but I think I'm just going to do the one. So I'm just going to play the Nancy Grace video, but it's really good. I listened to it earlier and I was like, ooh. And I should have wrote down like notes as I was like listening to it, but I was, you know, doing laundry and stuff as I was listening to it. Because she did point out a couple things in there and I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about that either. So I'll have to update my timeline whenever we are, not my timeline really, but I'll update you guys and let you know what the questions were that I wanted to answer. It was something, it was just, I don't know. She's had a lot of stuff she was saying that was good. So let me see where I'm going to go with this. I only have a couple of things to show you guys this evening. So it's going to be like, it's not going to be quick, but it's going to be like nice and informational. Hopefully. Because a lot of people don't know about this case, so I figured I would go ahead and do a timeline. Also, I thought I saw Summer in here. Good evening, or good afternoon, Summer. Good evening. What is it? Time is it? 6:20. I saw her, Kelly D. Just making sure I say hi to everybody. But I did do a timeline for Alex Murdaugh starting July 8th. So I started it at the tippy top and I made my way down. If I missed anything, let me know and we'll squeeze it in there. But I think I got it all, hopefully. And then at the bottom of this, I do have like some of the evidence that they brought forth so far in the case. And then we will go from there and listen to Nancy because she has a really good panel on there. Let me see who all she has on. She has Dale Carson, but there was a couple women that were on there. Dr. Michelle Dupree was one of them. She's a former forensic pathologist, a medical examiner, and a detective. She had some stuff to say that was pretty interesting. And Cheryl McCollum also. And Nancy actually, if you don't even like Nancy, you're going to like this live because Nancy actually is like, she calls it eating a mud sandwich or mud pie or something. She was she said misinformation or she thought that something was something different. And she came out and she straight said it. Like, she was like, wait, hold on. No, you guys were right on that. And she's like, I'm eating a mud pie or mud sandwich. I don't know. She just, you know, Nancy, she just says some crazy off the wall things. She said she's not allowed to cuss since she had her twins or something, she said. So I guess that's why she doesn't cuss. Because if she were to be a cusser, I'm assuming that wouldn't be good for TV. And can everyone see this okay? So July 8th, 2015, the body of Stephen Smith, who is 19, was found on Sandy Run Road in Hampton County, South Carolina. His death was ruled a hit and run, but his family had lingering questions. Then we have February 26, 2018. So that's 2015. They don't have nothing happening again until like February 26, 2018. That's when Miss Satterfield. Gloria, 57, who worked as a housekeeper and nanny for the Murdaugh family for about a quarter century, died about 2 weeks after she was reported to have fallen on the front stairs of the family's hunting property. February 24th, 2019, Alex Murdaugh's younger son, Paul, who was then 19, drunkenly crashed the family's boat into a bridge. Witnesses said throwing several of his passengers into the water. The body of one passenger, Mallory Beach, 19, was found a week later. Miss Beach parents would later sue Alex Murdaugh, bringing pressure on him to reveal details about his finances. So, and also, if you guys can answer me this, this is one of the questions I had. Who's the lady? I haven't watched the last couple of days of court, and I need to get caught up, but I heard that there's been a lady in the courtroom with him. Like sitting with him, like not like sitting with him, but sitting with his family or near his family. And like, they're like making eye contact with each other. Where's Teresa at? She's probably taking a nap. She's so familiar with this case. I swear she's been watching it nonstop. Isabel, you probably know too. You guys always know that. Summer, you guys always know the Alex Murdaugh. You guys know the Alex Murdaugh case better than me. So let me know who the lady was that's been in the courtroom with him. Because it's not his sister, reportedly. But April 18th, so after the death of Mallory Beach, that was February 24th. April 18th, 2019, Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 felony counts in connection with the deadly boat crash. He later pled not guilty. And I didn't realize that was February, that happened to her. Why were they out in February on the water anyway? Like, who wants to be out on a boat in February? South Carolina is not that warm. Or is it warmer than I think? Oh, we'll have to listen to the Nancy podcast because she brings it up. She brings up that it was somebody that was sitting in the courtroom, and it's someone that blew a kiss or something to Alex Murdaugh. I think that's what she says in the podcast. So now we'll have to, it's towards the end too, guys. And I'm not trying to make you guys sit through the whole thing to hear it, but I remember her saying something about the lady said something about it too, her and the other Fox correspondent that is in court with her right now. They both said it, or she said it, and then I don't know. We'll have to listen to it. You take the boat out all year long? Oh, it'd just be so cold. They went to an oyster roast. Oh, see, we don't have those in Ohio. Because I'm thinking February, right now. Okay, we're in February, so I am not trying to be on the water. We have a body of water in front of our apartment. That's for the ducks and just pretty sprinkler things or whatever, waterfalls. And I couldn't imagine being on a boat in that little pond right now. It'd be so cold. But I guess South Carolina is a little warmer than Ohio. See, I don't think it was Buster's girlfriend, but I don't know. See, Nancy made it seem like it wasn't. It was a new lady. She was who was that lady? You know what I mean? Because I think Nancy would know if it was his sister or if it was Buster's girlfriend. We're going to have to listen to it. I'm going to have to remember. Girl, I'll remember as soon as I hear it, but I'll write it down. But I remember that she said something who's the correspondent? That's her name. Kelly Skelhan is the Fox Nation senior producer that's there, and she's the one I think that's in the courtroom with Nancy, and she's the one I think that saw it, and they were both talking about it. So I don't know. And I know that there is his brothers there. So the one that looks like his brother, because I said the other day, it was in a live. So it would have been that Friday because we only did the Friday live. That whole day we did that whole Friday. I said that guy looks kind of he could be related to Alec, and it was. I guess later on I read it was his brother. So So I don't know. Blanca, I don't know. Now we're gonna have to watch it and figure it out. I'm gonna have to skip through these real quick. So on April 18th, 2019, I just said this, but Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 felony counts in connection with the deadly boat crash. He later pled not guilty. So Alec Murdaugh's son was charged, in connection with killing this poor girl at Mallory Beach, which he did. And he pled not guilty, but he was driving the boat, witnesses say. And then so June 7th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh called 911 to report that his wife Maggie and son Paul had been shot at the family's hunting property in Islandton, South Carolina. I think I'm saying that right, Islandton. Sorry. I just made my eyes skip a beat there. Sorry, guys. June 22nd, state officials announced that they were reopening the investigation into the death of Stephen Smith, the teenager who died in 2015, based on information gathered during investigations into the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. September 3rd, 2021, Alex Murdaugh was forced to resign from his family's law firm, and his parents said he had misused millions of dollars of client and firm money. So his circle is getting smaller and smaller, You could just see it through the timeline that it is. Alex was on September 3rd, 2021, Alex Murdaugh was forced to resign from his family's law firm after his partner said he had misused millions of dollars from client and firm money. September 4th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh called 911 from the side of the road, not far from his home, and said he had been shot in the head. He claimed that the shooter had pulled beside him while inspecting a flat tire. Alex Murdaugh survived with a head wound. Does anyone believe that he really, that he tried to take his own life that day? Have someone, take him out? Or do you think that he just wanted to have the head wound and survive it to take the pressure off of him maybe? Because that's a good question. Because I just don't see him, I don't know. After thinking about it, I don't really see him committing the S word. Trying to keep it rated a little less than R in here. So that, YouTube doesn't hate me forever. But if you are just now joining us, we are going over the the Alec Murdaugh trial. We've been going over the Idaho for the last 2 days. So that's probably why. It's actually just, we've been going over the actual timeline of the Alec Murdaugh trial leading up to the trial. And then I'm going to go over some evidence that they have presented in the trial so far. And then we're going to watch Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. She's going to get us up into the halfway point of Friday. She's going to get us all caught up. Oh, when Nancy says certain words, it makes me laugh. Murdaugh. I think she does say it on purpose. That's funny. I like how she says jurors. She says it with such the emphasis on it, like jurors. She'll go with jurors. You'll hear. She's just so funny. She has to bring light to situations with her personality. Not she doesn't even mean to, but it's just, it's her personality. And this guy's done it all. So it's just crazy. And then September 6, 2021, Alec Murdaugh released a statement through his lawyer saying he had made decisions he regretted and was entering a rehab program. I like how you can just do all this and then just go to rehab. Most people wouldn't be allowed to do that. September 14, 2021, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division said Alex Murdaugh had admitted that he asked a former client, Curtis Edward Smith, to shoot him and kill him on September 4th so that Alex Murdaugh's surviving son, Buster, could collect a $10 million life insurance payment. So I don't think that's what he was. I don't know. Because in the podcast, and Nancy brings up a good point. Oh, sorry. And I'll have to share it whenever she does, but she brings up a good point about that. September 5th, 2021, South Carolina law enforcement officials announced an investigation into the death of Miss Satterfield, the housekeeper who died in 2018, and her family members filed a lawsuit against Alec Murdaugh and others alleging they stole settlement funds related to her unaliving. September 16th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh was arrested and charged with fraud and conspiracy in the suicide scheme. His lawyer said that Alec Murdaugh was depressed by the loss of his family and struggling to stop abusing painkillers when he devised the plan, and that he would check into rehab. A judge released Alec Murdaugh but ordered him to surrender his passport. I mean, you got all this stuff going against you and you just have to surrender your passport, like only in that county, in that state. I'm gonna grab my drink really quick. I mean, I don't know where else are you going to get that same treatment. I'd much rather go to a rehab center than go to a jail if I had a choice. You know, that's just me. October 14th, Alec was arrested at a Florida drug detoxification center and charged with swindling millions of dollars from the sons of Miss Satterfield. He was jailed in Richland, South Carolina, and twice denied bond. December 13th, during a hearing at which a judge set his bond at $7 million, Alec Murdaugh's lawyer said that his client had agreed to pay $4.3 million to Miss Satterfield's family. He remained in jail. So, is he still I don't think he's paid her family yet, has he? I don't think he has. I think that my hands are really dry, sorry. I think that he still owes her, right? Buster has a yearbook. Sorry, I was reading Isabel's thing. It said, Buster has a yearbook quote from Babe Ruth that says, "Never let the fear of striking out get in your way." Oh, wow, bit of coincidence. Yeah, now that I think Stephen was attacked with a baseball bat. Wow. Yes. That's a whole other case, right? They collected $7 million. Thank you, Parker Murray. I was wondering if they, I wonder if they got it, because I know that didn't he take the money and give it to his bank or something? Oh, the sons they got their money? Oh, okay, good. Well, good. I'm glad that they at least somebody, one victim is getting paid back. That's just terrible. But that's what happens when, I guess, we talk about this, like I've talked about this before. I guess if after you get a certain amount of money, you just want more and more and more and more. I don't understand that. But when you have an addiction to oxycodone, of all things, that's going to put a dent on your wallet a lot. That's going to put a lot on your family. I mean, and you know that, do you think that his wife knew? I think that she would have had to have known. She would have had to have seen something at some point. Maybe he blamed it on the kids or something. I heard that they were, Summer, I heard that they were looking to exhume her body too. I heard that the family said something like it was okay. I thought I heard it, but because doesn't he say something like she used to work for, or she works for us or something? Like he made himself like so distant from her. It's just crazy. So June 3rd, 2022, the police said that they planned to exhume Miss Satterfield's body, having received permission from her family. We were just right there. So June 28th, 2022, Alex Murdaugh and Curtis Edward Smith were indicted by the state's grand jury on 2 conspiracy counts, including a narcotics count related to the painkiller oxycodone. Oh, thank you, Summer. Yeah, I'll look at that. Because I remember, did they just now release? Because I thought I heard this before a long time ago, like when Paul got in trouble for the whole boating accident. I thought that call came out then, but But then I don't know. Maybe he did it. And then it says on July 14th, Alex Murdaugh was indicted on 2 counts of murder. Prosecutors said he fatally shot his wife with a rifle and his son with a shotgun. July 20th, Murdaugh pled not guilty at a bond hearing, and his lawyer said he wanted to go to trial as soon as possible. They always want to go to trial as soon as possible, don't they? December 16th, 2022, a state grand jury indicted Alex Murdaugh on 9 counts of tax evasion, and prosecutors with the state attorney general's office said he had defrauded a range of people of about $8.8 million. Merry Christmas to him. That's just crazy. How can you? That's just so much money. And I think he made I forget, it was like 17 or 14 million in 1 year or something, or so many years or 1 year. I don't know what it was, but altogether. And then he stole like 7 million or 8, they said 8 million, 8.8. So he made just as much as he stole. Like, what do you do with that much money? You know that you probably, I mean, I don't know. Can you do that? I guess you can do that many drugs. January 23rd, 2023, Alex Murdaugh's trial began on the homicide charges. They began with jury selection, and then they ended up picking the jury that Wednesday after a couple hiccups, but they got over them, and they got a jury together. That's just so much, money. Yeah, that is a lot of money. Well, their house was worth... what, 6 million, I think, 7 million. I don't know. It's just crazy. Now they have to answer to people. And they probably don't want to. They probably don't want to do that. The brother, they're all still sitting behind Alec. They're still there. His brother's there. Maybe his sister, you guys said, was there. His son is there. His son's girlfriend is there. People are there in support of him because they're sitting behind him. If they were in support of the prosecution, they'd be sitting over by the prosecution. But they're not. And so they're somebody that has done all of these horrific crimes, and these people still just sit behind him. I don't care if he's been charged with 77. How do you think, what's the percentage that he didn't do any of these? I don't even want to know what the percentage that could be. We need some math magician that could do that kind of math, because I'm not your girl for that. But I'm just thinking that the odds are stacked against him. Even if he beats the 2 murder raps, even if it was the 2 murder charges, say he beats those, which I don't think he will. Say he does. He still has 75 other crimes against him. He's, I don't know. And he just thinks he's probably going to walk out of there, I'm assuming. So evidence, presented at trial so far, and this isn't including witness testimony, because witness testimony has been crucial, I feel like, in this case. Hearing it from people's mouths, when you hear it yourself. But the 911 call from Murdaugh on the night of the murders, statements and video body cam footage from responding officers, 3 recorded statements Murdaugh gave to law enforcement, ballistics evidence that shows matches from ammo at the crime scene to other ammo on the property, suggesting it was a family gun, that killed them. And that's what we saw in the body cam footage. They were picking up the casings there are bullets from a gun, and GPS location data from Murdaugh's vehicle, cell phone data from Murdaugh's phone, as well as both of the victims' phones, and then Paul's Snapchat video. It's a blue raincoat covered with gunshot residue. It was found at Murdaugh's parents' home, and a witness who saw him put it there. Gunshot residue on Murdaugh's clothing and the seatbelt of his vehicle. And that's all I think I had, of that. He's done so much. Yeah, he didn't gamble very well on this one, did he? Susan said that, yeah. Doesn't he, because he still owes, who does he still owe money to? He's, I don't know. Oh, his best friend works with SLED? Oh, I didn't know that, but I did hear on the Nancy Grace podcast when I was listening to this actually earlier before I came on. I listened to the whole thing. She was mentioning that he was not, that Alec wasn't very good when his friend was on the stand. I guess like when his best friend was on the stand, he was kind of like crying a little bit or something, got a little emotional. But I didn't watch it yet, so I like to because I like to see his face for myself because I don't think that he really cries. So I would love to see that. Because every time I've seen the guy cry, it's looked real pathetic, like, you know? And I mean, I'm sorry, but if your wife and your child have been murdered, you're going to be crying. You're going to be upset, or you're going to be at least in some shock to where you're not, you know, not going to be able to talk at all. He was just talking like it was, like he was going to the grocery store. Like they were just walking around the mall. Him and the cops and the lawyer. Okay, we're going to get to Nancy. I'm going to read you the, I'm going to read you this here a little bit, actually. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on it. I say usually we can. Oops. I think that's as far as I can go. It says, both emotional and technical testimony today in Alex Murdaugh's murder trial. The day started with Alex Murdaugh's defense lawyer grilling ballistics expert Paul Greer. Greer testified older shell casings found on the Murdaugh's estate and those found near Maggie Murdaugh's body were shot by the same weapon. Defense lawyer Jim Griffin Greer challenged the testimony of the accuracy and credibility of what he called the subjective techniques used in firearm examinations. Alex Murdaugh's former best friend, Chris Wilson, shed tears as he recounted how Alex Murdaugh asked for money as allegations of financial crimes came to light. Wilson also testified that Murdaugh admitted to opioid addiction. And then it has her panel, Dale Carson, Cheryl McCollum, Irv Brandt. It says... and Michelle Dupree, it looks like. Owen Kelly, I can't pronounce her last name, Skehan. She's a Fox News producer. She's the girl that's been in the courtroom with Nancy, like sitting with Nancy alongside, because they've been in the courthouse all week. So this is Friday. They did a taping. They usually do like half of the day, and then they'll do like the other half of the day. So this is like the first half. And then it gets you all caught up until like Friday, I believe like Friday afternoon, Friday evening, that time. And of course they don't have court, you know, on the weekend. So there hasn't been anything going on. So let me make sure. I don't know if I can really control the volume on this side, but I'm going to try. Just remember to like kind of maybe turn your volume down just a little bit because the beginning music is kind of loud for, you know, Nancy's podcast. Also, don't forget to like the video if you could, please. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you here. If you want to become a channel member, I will put it in the I'll put it in the chat in just a moment. For some reason, it's not letting me. So, okay, I'll do it in just a moment.
%of Uber Eats orders are on.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Another day full of bombshells in the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial. The jury has just taken its lunch break, and we are live at the courthouse bringing you the very latest. Got an all-star panel of guests to break down what is happening in the courtroom right now as Alex Murdaugh, flanked by his fleet of lawyers, listens as the evidence pours from the witness stand. A lot happening in court today. Today, for the first time, we see the family of Gloria Satterfield speaking out. And when I saw, I mean, he looked like a young boy to me on the stand, talking about how nearly $4 million was stolen from his family after Miss Satterfield falls to her death down the Murdaugh steps. You know, I'm surprised he didn't break down crying about the death of his mother. And I can tell you another thing. I love the way this judge is handling the courtroom. He's moving along, never rude, never curt. But the minute one witness finishes, he says, call your next witness. He keeps it moving. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thanks for being with us here at Fox Nation and SiriusXM 111. First of all, straight out to the front of the courthouse, standing by, Kelly Skean, senior producer with me at Crime Stories. Kelly, thank you for being with us. Kelly, we were on the cusp of hearing Ballistics matchup. Did you hear the last questions being asked of Agent Greer? And I really like this guy because there's a lot of male testosterone prancing around the courtroom. And this guy is very low key. He's very mild mannered. And he comes across as very believable to me. And when he said one of the last items he was talking about was from the left shoulder and the head of Paul Murdaugh, that really brought it all home. What this is all about, Kelly. Who is this guy? And what do you think he's going to tell us?
Nancy, this is Special Agent Paul Greer. And actually, in a pretrial motion, the defense tried tooth and nail, really tried to throw out one last Hail Mary to block his testimony from being allowed in court. What we are expecting to hear, based on what we've heard from him before the trial started, is he is going to say that the gun that Maggie Murdaugh was killed with is a gun from the Murdaugh property. So we are expecting him to say that the markings on the 300 blackout shell casings actually match markings on other 300 blackout shell casings that were already on the Murdaugh property. And what we heard from Paul Murdaugh's friend earlier this week was that the two of them actually used a 300 blackout months before the murders. So they are going to try and match those shell casings to the ones found near Maggie Murdaugh's body. And like I said, this is a witness that the defense did not want to be allowed at trial, but here we are.
Hey, if I could get Christine in our New York control room, can you show Greer video again? This is the witness that I like so much. I mean, I've liked a lot of the witnesses, but this guy comes in, he's all business, but he's very laid back and mild mannered. And I like the way he's speaking to this jury. Very conversational. And that's what jurors need to hear, frankly, from every witness, but especially from a witness that is dealing with scientific data. And that is why, and let me throw this to you, Dale Carson, high profile lawyer joining me out of Jacksonville. And this is something that I like about Dale Carson. Not that he's a defense attorney. Don't like that. I like that he's a former agent with the FBI. Dale, that is why I know they hated to see that old county Crown Vic pull up to the front of the crime lab or the morgue, because I would be getting out, Dale Carson, to go through their report line by line to try to encourage them to speak regular people talk and not scientific talk. That's what I like about this witness, Greer. He's making it easy for everybody to understand, even if they don't have a ballistics background.
I think he is being very simple, and it conveys well to the jury. And what I heard him use the word decontaminate, and then he immediately followed with the word touch, which is what he's talking about. So he's removing all the extremely complicated scientific terms and speaking directly to the jury. And in that way, he makes himself extremely credible. And, you know, you said he's making it simple. He is by no means a simpleton, because when I heard his background and how he has already conducted thousands and thousands of ballistics comparisons, this guy is anything but a simpleton. Joining me also, Cheryl McCollum, forensic expert, knows her way around a shotgun, I can tell you that much, and director of the Cold Case Research Institute. Weigh in, Cheryl McCollum.
You know, what he's doing is a beautiful job in explaining something that could be, for somebody that's never handled a firearm, somewhat confusing. So he's going to explain very clearly what this birdshot is. So when you have a shotgun and it's filled with, you know, birdshot or buckshot, these little bitty pellets. And if you stand 2 feet from a door and you have a handful of, let's say, 100, and you throw them at that door, it's going to be a tight pattern. They're not going to spread very far. But the reason people use these for hunting birds is the further it goes, the more they spread out. So you're almost guaranteed to hit your target.
You know, Cheryl McCollum, when you're striking a jury, you should never, ever judge a book by its cover. But when you said he's making it easy for people that don't handle firearms to understand, there's one lady, I love this lady. The judge keeps the courtroom so cold. Bat me up, Kelly Skin. So the jurors will stay awake. I know that for a fact because I had an insider tell me that. And they get up and they get down. They stretch their legs to keep them awake. There's one juror in there, Cheryl McCollum, that she brings a blanket with her and she pulls it all the way up, kind of like this, up in the jury. And, you know, she's all bundled up and I see those eyes looking over that blanket, staring at the witness. She never nods off. I've never seen her blink. But I don't see her out on the range coming guns loaded. You see what I mean? So I like the way this guy is talking. So back to you, Kelly Skin. Tell me one more time how you think he's going to zip it up. How's he going to, button it up at the end for me?
Sure. So what we are expecting from this witness after the break is essentially, in a nutshell, the point that he's going to make is that Maggie Murdaugh was killed with a family gun that had previously been at Moselle. We are expecting him to say that the markings on shell casings next to Maggie's body match other shell casings at a different location on the property. And to your point about the courtroom being very cold, I did notice that juror had a blanket today, and I also even noticed the judge yawning at some point. While there are bombshell after bombshell after bombshell in this trial, there's also a lot of just kind of monotonous testimony, whether it's financial crimes or the types of casings on the bullet, or, the types of casings, the types of bullets, the types of guns.
Kelly,
it's a lot of stuff that people don't. Yes.
Kelly, please.
Yes.
It's not boring. It's what we in the biz call laying a foundation. And unless you lay that foundation, and believe me, if not Hart Pooley and somebody on his team will jump up in a minute and say, that can't come in. They didn't lay the foundation. There's a very clear and intricate foundation that must be laid for every bullet, every shell casing, every item that comes into evidence. And it can be very, very painstaking. And speaking of yawning, Miss Kelly, I just saw Hart Pullian, the lead defense attorney, yawn. I mean, when we were little in kindergarten, we were taught, don't yawn, it's rude. Couldn't he stifle it, for Pete's sake? He's the lead defense attorney. He's yawning in front of the jury?
He might be yawning in front of the jury, but something else I saw today is Alec Murdaugh is definitely not yawning. He is looking at every single one of those jurors as they file into the courtroom and following them all the way to their seat. He stands, he's very tall. You cannot miss his presence. He's not yawning. He's even pointing out exhibits on the screen and, like we talked about yesterday, playing a very active role in his defense.
Well, maybe he can give Hart Pullian a little elbow action to keep Hart Pullian awake once they teach Hart Pullian how to work an iPhone. Christine, out of the control room, could you please, let's take it out of order. Let's go to our cut 9. Take a listen to this, everybody.
If you had the passcode, right?
Yes.
Open it. Without the passcode, typically you can't open it, correct?
No, sir.
You agree with me?
I do, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. So if you had that passcode, you could open it, delete photos, delete phone messages, delete texts, delete whatever you want, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you found that phone, it was locked?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And was there any evidence that you saw that anything had been deleted from that phone in any of your, after your download, extraction?
Again, I did not download or extract the contents of the device. The only thing that I saw was the home screen and made sure that the airplane mode was applied at that point.
$95.
Every time I pause it the first time, it does that. That's why I paused it, because I knew it was going to do that. Nancy is on a roll this evening. You're right. She's on a roll. She gets a lot of information out in this podcast. I listened to this earlier and I was like, dang, girl. So let me go ahead and fast forward it back to where we were and get past the commercial there. Okay.
Typically, you can't open it, correct?
And made sure.
You agree with me?
I do, yes, sir.
Nancy Grace.
If you had the passcode, right?
Yes,
Open it. Without the passcode, typically you can't open it, correct?
No, sir.
You agree with me?
I do, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. So if you had that passcode, you could open it, delete photos, delete phone messages, delete text, delete whatever you want, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you found that phone, it was locked?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And was there any evidence that you saw that anything had been deleted by from that phone in any of your, after your download extraction?
Again, I did not download or extract the contents of the device. The only thing that I saw was the home screen and made sure that the airplane mode was applied at that point, and then it was placed into an evidence bag.
So, Kelly, is someone on the defense team unfamiliar with an iPhone?
It seems to be, Nancy. You just heard Dylan Hightower. He's with the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. And yesterday, he and Dick Harpulitan were going back and forth on how to put a phone in airplane mode. We've heard a lot about a Faro bag and putting phones into airplane mode so they can't be tampered with. There was a bit of a back and forth there about how can you put a phone into airplane mode. And as most iPhone users know, you can do that without the passcode. And another funny moment kind of in court was they were going back and forth about how Maggie Murdaugh's phone could have gotten on the side of the road. They were talking about, do you throw your phone overhand? Do you throw it underhand? And Hightower said, I would simply just fling it out the window like that. And that really seemed to stop Alec Murdaugh's defense in their tracks there, and they stopped their questioning.
Yeah, you know what? My 91-year-old mother can work an iPhone better than anybody I know. So maybe she can give Hartpooling a lesson on how to work an iPhone. Speaking of iPhones, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but sorry, Christine, once again, got to go out of order. Can we please play cut 5? Speaking of deleted items on a cell phone, it's not Maggie's cell phone I'm worried about. Take a listen to this.
Specifically, with Alex's phone, what did you discover when you're comparing these phone records to the phone itself, the call log?
Once I started, I essentially built a digital timeline of all forms of digital evidence that we had during that time frame. On the date in question on June 7th, I only saw 2 FaceTime calls on the phone extraction, and I saw a series of around 73 phone calls on the Verizon call detail record.
Okay. And what did that tell you when you saw that missing information?
It could be a multitude of things. They were either removed by the user or the one responsible for using the device. It could have overlapped from the call log history. It could have been a series of things.
So you didn't recover any deleted artifacts of the phone call?
That is correct. No, sir, I did not.
When I say deleted artifacts, what does that mean?
Anything that was manually deleted from the device itself.
Overlapped from call log history. You know, in all my years of using cell phones, I've never had that happen. And I've actually never known an instance where I've had items deleted without me doing it myself. So Cheryl McCollum, what are they saying? Because I'm interpreting it to mean that Murdaugh deleted 73 phone calls on June 7, the same day his wife and son were murdered.
That's exactly how I interpret it. And Nancy, this could be one of those money trees that not only tighten that timeline, but show exactly that this person was trying to get rid of some type of communication that he made with the victims and, you know, possibly other people as well, that many. But if, let's say he texted her or sent her a voicemail that was less than romantic, he wants to get rid of that to show that they weren't having any kind of trouble. Remember, their marriage is as good as it can be. He doesn't want any voicemail where he was cussing at her or using any type of vulgarity toward her and in their situation. He wants to get rid of those text messages where he lured her there, where even she told her friend, hey, something's up. He's acting fishy.
That is exactly what I'm thinking, because we got it clearly yesterday that Murdaugh, lured Maggie there under the guise of, hey, my dad's about to die. I need you to come to Moselle. We need to go visit him. I'd like to point out, he didn't go visit his dad that night, and she didn't go visit the dad that night that we know of. So that was all just a big ruse. Irv Brandt, Senior Inspector, U.S. Marshal Service, International Investigations, author with DOJ. I mean, the U.S. government has sent Irv Brandt all around the world in prosecutions. Irv Brandt, thank you for being with us. 73 missing calls from Alex Murdaugh's phone. All right, that could be an accident, but how likely is it to be an accident the night his wife and son are murdered?
In investigations, you don't believe in a coincidence and you don't believe in accidents. This was obviously a deliberate act, and it's devastating to the defense. The jurors are going to see it as he's trying to cover up. He's trying to get rid of evidence that doesn't gel with his alibi.
You know, you said that so perfectly, so succinctly, Irv Brandt. Dr. Michelle Dupree joining me there in South Carolina, forensic pathologist, medical examiner, former detective, and author, and this says it all, of Homicide Investigation Field Guide. She's at DMichelleDupreeMD.com. Dr. Dupree, thank you for being with us. I want to circle back to what we heard just before we came out of the courthouse. Paul Greer, Special Agent Paul Greer on the stand. He was just presented state's exhibits, and he described them as bullets from the left shoulder and head of Paul Murdaugh. I just wanted that to soak in just a moment. Dr. Dupree, how many times have you dug a bullet out of a dead body?
More than I can count.
How do you do it?
Well, you are very careful to not put extra markings on the bullet. So you typically, you photograph everything, you document everything on a sketch, and then when you remove the bullet, you go adjacent to it to take the bullet out so that you do not place markings on it. But I want to say something about what he said. He said that plastic was recovered from the left shoulder and head of Paul. This is most likely wadding. And in my experience, I am not a firearms examiner. However, in my experience, wadding that actually enters a body or causes injury from a shotgun typically goes only about 6 feet or so. Now, it can go much farther than that. But to find it in a body, this places that shooter probably within about 6 feet of the victim.
Dr. Dupree, could you just put it in slow-mo and say that very carefully and slowly what you just said, because I find that extremely important.
As do I, Nancy. The autopsy, according to the person that was just speaking, found plastic in Paul's wound in the left shoulder and head. That plastic is most likely part of the shotgun wadding that was described by Agent Greer, who is awesome, by the way. But what that indicates to me is that the wadding can travel a distance, and I'm not a firearms examiner, but in my experience, it typically only travels about 6 feet or so to enter the body. Gravity takes over and it falls down after that. So to me, this tells me that the shooter was probably about 6 feet or so from Paul when he was shot.
6 feet or less, because wadding typically travels, as you just said, about 6 feet. Now, this goes hand in hand with the theory of a close range shooting, which completely defeats the defense theory that there's probably 2 assailants. It shows me that all of this was close range. People were moving. And so the trajectory path, the angle of the bullets means less and less and less. We've got stippling. We've got wadding inside the wound, inside Paul's body. Again, that shows close range contact. And Cheryl McCollum, explain what is wadding and how does it get into the body? It travels with the bullet. When you're talking about a shotgun, for sure.
Absolutely. And this shooter left nothing to chance. He was not going to shoot from a distance. So when the projectile is released from the weapon, the wadding comes with it, and it will be separated. Usually you'll find it, near. But in this case, we have evidence of it being in Paul's body, which if you include the length of that weapon, you're talking the shooter might have been 6 feet away, but that weapon could have been 3 to 2 feet away.
Nancy,
Wadding go ahead.
It's a plastic cup in which all of the actual rounds, either the birdshot or the 9-ball from a buckshot, centers in. So the buckshot comes right as a cup out of the firearm, and that's what we're talking about here that went into the body. And Cheryl's absolutely right. That shows extremely close range. And the fact that there are 48 actual pellets found in the shoulder area means that it has to be close range. Anything over that, you're going to have not quite so many actual rounds in the body.
Absolutely. So, Nancy, think of a saucer, and then a plate, and then a platter, and then it's bigger than that. So you're talking about a saucer. That's how tight these projectiles were in a mass.
Christine, in the control room, could you show me a picture, please, of Paul and Maggie, or a single shot of each one of them? Because it's easy when we're talking about wadding on bullets. I found this bullet and I found that cartridge, and these people were shot brutally, repeatedly. Look at Maggie. Kelly, how many times was Maggie Murdaugh shot? And she was running. She was running, Kelly. She saw her son shot first, I believe, according to what we know right now. She saw and heard that, and she's running for her life. And when I look at them, I look at their faces, and I imagine seeing your son, your child shot. And then suddenly you're running for your life. You're torn between trying to save him and running. And then you're gunned down, and you know who your killer is. This isn't some hypothetical. This lovely lady, this devoted mother to raising these two boys, to working, to being a mom, is gunned down in a dog kennel along with her baby boy. And yes, I say baby boy. My son is 6'4". Well, he's 6'5" now. And he's still my baby boy. I mean, is that getting lost on anybody in the courtroom, Kelly?
This is the basis for the premeditation,
Nancy,
too.
You're right. I'm going to circle back on that. Go ahead, Kel.
So we know that Maggie was shot at least 5 times. And what we've learned from the prosecution is that she was shot second. So in all likelihood, she saw her own son, Paul, being shot, tried to run away, and was shot 5 times. Some of those shots were execution style.
Okay, I think that was you, Dale. Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, it wasn't. The premeditation becomes rather obvious. If he is in fact guilty, then he had to stage the weapons, and he had to have them present in the area where everybody would be when they're tending to the dogs. And he's able to grab the shotgun, shoot his son first, and then he has the other weapon in case there's a flaw with the first shotgun, and then he can use the second gun as his wife runs away, because of course distance makes it more difficult to kill somebody with a shotgun. So that all plays into the premeditation that the prosecution will ultimately bring to bear against the defense.
Nancy, can I jump in?
Brant. Go ahead, dear.
Dale's 100% right. And if you listen to what Alex Murdaugh said in his statement to police, he told us how he did it. He said that he and Paul had been out on the four-wheeler looking for hogs to shoot. Well, both of them would have had a weapon. He would have circled back around with that.
I actually have a question for you guys about the rounds, actually. So in a shotgun, like when you shoot a shotgun compared to shooting like an actual like handgun, the bullets are different. Like a buckshot or whatever, they're like those plasticky kind of looking bullets with all the pellets inside of it. So I don't think that they can get striation marks off of those casings anyway, as easy as they can get them off of like a regular handgun. So that's probably, I mean, so even if they had the actual weapon, I don't know if they would be able to match it up 100%. Would they be able to do that with a shotgun? Because of the, I don't know, maybe, I mean, unless they've changed in the years since, you know, since I've last looked into it. But I know that that's how it used to be, where it was like the striations were different because of it being a, like, it melts it down or something. Or actually, you still see it. I don't know. It's just a hard plastic, I guess. And then they're actually getting ready to say something really interesting too. So I should have let it play through, but I'm going to go back 15 seconds.
Alex Murdaugh said in his statement to police, he told us how he did it. He said that he and Paul had been out on the four-wheeler looking for hogs to shoot. Well, both of them would have had a weapon. He would have circled back around with that four-wheeler.
That's what I wanted to ask you was like, what do you guys think about that? Them both being there, because, you know, we were discussing in one of the earlier lives about how he would have two weapons there. Well, that explains why both weapons would be on the property. If they were supposed to be out there shooting hogs, both of them, then they would both have a weapon, surely, for that purpose. So I thought that was a pretty good statement that they made on the podcast. That made sense to me on why both weapons would be, you know, out there at that time.
The two weapons were right there at the ready.
You know, Irv Brandt joining me, you've seen so many cases all around the world, but I'm just thinking about the dynamic between Paul and Maggie. Maggie has been standing by for years watching her marriage deteriorate. And if you really love your children, you want your marriage to work. You want their father to be there. And she has stood by and seen alleged drug abuse, stealing money, exorbitant spending. And if you are on drugs, you have these wild mood swings, losing the money, just losing everything. And all that leads to this moment where she is gunned down in a dog kennel.
That's exactly right, Nancy. Everyone has a breaking point, no matter how much you love your child, no matter how much you love your husband. The amount of things that are just stacking up and keep stacking up would drive her to the point of confrontation, maybe threats. Then she obviously becomes a liability, and also her child becomes a liability. And like you said before, with two weapons, if you have them staged out, that was a cold-blooded act. To use the shotgun first, then to pick up the rifle because you didn't want to take the time to reload the shotgun, then go to the rifle, then bring a person down, then walk up and do a close-range kill shot. Just completely cold-blooded actions. And premeditated actions.
Kelly Skian joining me. Kelly has just walked out of the courtroom. So did Murdaugh start crying again today?
You know, I'm looking at the back of his head, so I did not see him crying today, but what I did see right before I left is an older lady who I'm still working to identify blew him a kiss. She was sitting with the Murdaugh family. He gave her a very, very big smile and a thumbs up. It's one of the first kind of shows.
So that's what I was talking about whenever I was saying that there was a woman in the gallery that she blew him a kiss. And I guess he like waved back at her. So I don't think that would be his sister. I'm going to put it back like 15 seconds so you guys can hear that part if you guys didn't get to hear it.
See him crying today, but what I did see right before I left is an older lady who I'm still working to identify blew him a kiss. She was sitting with the Murdaugh family. He gave her a very, very big smile and a thumbs up. It's one of the first kind of shows of emotion outside of crying or just giving somebody the steel-eyed stare that I've seen from Murdaugh so far. And
Does anyone know who the woman was? Teresa, do you know who the woman was in court? I asked earlier, but you weren't in the chat then. I'm wondering who the woman is. Like, I'm pretty sure that Nancy or her correspondents would know. Like, his sister, Buster's girlfriend, surely wouldn't be blowing him a kiss. His sister surely wouldn't be blowing him a kiss. I wonder who the girl is, the woman is. And I think they even say on this podcast that when they go out for lunch, like when everyone leaves for lunch, that woman, she stays behind. But that I'm not 100% on, but we'll hear in the podcast in just a moment. So
I want to say one more thing about Maggie Murdaugh. What we've also learned is that in all likelihood, she actually picked up and bought the weapon that she was murdered with. And I think that just speaks to the tragedy of this entire thing.
Guys, I want to go back into the courtroom for you to hear the testimony yourself. Christine, I'm trying to get us back on track. Thank you for going with me. Let's go to our cut 3. I'm just wondering how, if, and how Alex Murdaugh discarded his bloody clothing. Take a listen to Special Agent Katie McAllister on searching the house.
Once I arrived on scene, myself along with Special Agent Croft were asked to go up to the main house to do a search of the property, or of the home.
Did you have a search warrant?
There was a search warrant, yes.
Was that search warrant executed?
It was not.
Why not?
At the time of my arrival, multiple family, close friends were at the house. Rather than executing the search warrant and displacing all of those people, we asked for consent and we were given it.
And were a lot of people at that residence at the time?
There were.
You could give us kind of a rough estimate of the amount of people that were there.
I would say maybe 20 or 25 people were in the home.
When you walked through the house, were you alone?
I was not.
Who was with you?
I believe it was John Marvin Murdaugh and Lee Cope.
So John Marvin Murdaugh is Murdaugh's brother. Guys, they had permission to go into the home, but Dale Carson, that does not impress me at all that Alex Murdaugh or one of his family gave permission. They're all lawyers. They know how bad it looks if you go, hey, no, you're not coming in our house. You got to go get a search warrant, because they know SLED's already probably got a search warrant as it is. So they gave permission.
Even so, they should remove everybody from the house. It's scene contamination. When you have other people at your shoulder watching what you're doing, you're not going to perform exactly what needs to happen. And that means a thorough search. And that doesn't happen amid a bunch of people. It happens when you put crime tape around the house and you really do a thorough search. And the fact that they didn't do that makes me wonder why they simply allowed somebody to consent to the search. In Florida, you're commanded to execute the search warrant. That's a judge's authorization telling you to go do it. And it doesn't allow for taking someone's consent, because that affects the actual carrying of the evidence, the location of the evidence. All of those things are affected by all of these people being in the house.
I don't know if the people at Murdaugh's place stayed in the home or not, if they left to do the search. Go ahead, Dr. Dupree.
Well, that's exactly right. This is very reminiscent of the John Benet Ramsey case, where the same thing happened, and that crime scene was a disaster from the beginning. And I'm wondering about this search. You do not allow other people to be in the house.
Well, I haven't heard anything suggesting that there was a bad search other than Dale Carson and Dr. Michelle Dupree. Do we know anything about a bad search? Kaylee Skinn or Cheryl McCollum? Because I haven't heard a word about it other than people were walking around in the dog kennel. I know that. But when you find 2 dead bodies, for Pete's sake, your first concern is not, hey, back off. Your concern is, are they dead or alive? What can we do, if anything, to save them? Is there a shooter on the grounds? I mean, there's a lot to take in. So second guessing everything they do, I don't know if that's appropriate.
Well, it may not be a bad search, Nancy, but
it certainly
I'm asking,
is something
does
that needs to...
anybody have a scintilla of evidence that there was a bad search? Now, if there was, fine, we'll deal with it. But if there's not a bad search, then let's move forward. Does anybody have even a shred of evidence that the interior of the Moselle Hunting Lodge was the subject of a bad search? Yes, no. Okay, let's move forward. SLED agent McAllister looking for potential bloody clothes. What, if anything, did she find? Take a listen to our cut 4.
Did you search the bedrooms?
I did.
You find any clothes, shoes, any evidence of clothing that would have blood on it or indicate it had blood on it or tissue? Anything that you saw in any of the bedrooms? How many bedrooms?
Several.
Several. You looked at all of them?
Yes, sir, I did.
Looked under the beds?
I did.
In the closets?
I did.
See any evidence of any clothes that had been involved in any sort of altercation that had left blood or tissue or brains? See anything like that in any one of those rooms?
No, sir, I didn't find anything like that.
Okay, guys, I'm reviewing my notes, and guess what? You're right and I'm wrong. Okay,
she
Jill
spray
Carson, I'm
luminol?
eating a
Did
dirt
she-
sandwich. Wait a minute. I'm eating a dirt sandwich here, all right?
Okay, well,
I
let me
was wrong.
listen then.
This is where you're going to hear Nancy actually say she was wrong about something, but I just thought it was fun. This is what I was telling you guys in the beginning when she was saying dirt sandwich. That's what it was. I said dirt pie or something. I couldn't remember what she was saying. She said, but yeah.
And to you too, Dr. Dupree. There were all those people in the house during the search. You're right. And that's a very bad move. That doesn't mean anything was done inappropriately. That doesn't mean that the evidence was not secured. But it gives you a much higher likelihood, Dr. Dupree, that things can go wrong. And yes, it is reminiscent of the John Benet Ramsey case when witnesses were not asked to leave. There were family friends there. A lot was happening. They needed to all leave and then take the witnesses separately and interview them immediately. And I'm looking at my notes here, and there were 20 to 25 people in the house during the search. So you're right, and I'm enjoying a dirt sandwich right now, Dr. Dupree.
Nancy, one of the things that they forgot to do was to check all the drain lines. And that's something you always do in a case like this to determine whether or not there's any biologic material in the drain lines. And you do that with luminol and other processes, and that was never done.
You're right. What about it, Doctor?
Yes, that is certainly one thing that should be done. You would always check for that in case the perpetrator took a shower. There would be evidence of blood or other biological material in those areas. And we know that Alex did change clothes.
I don't know if you guys remember the Chris Pine case where a young man was accused of murdering his own mother. There's a long backstory to that, but I remember blood being found in the drains, and it turned out that the killer had taken a nice long bath and probably shaved, but definitely a long bath or shower after the murder in the home where the mom was murdered. So again, what killer would do that if they were worried about being discovered, other than someone in the family that knew their way around the home and knew nobody was coming home? What killer commits a bloody murder and then goes in to the family bathroom and takes a bubble bath, for Pete's sake? So they're both right. Guys, we're talking about what's going down in the courtroom today, but I want you to hear more evidence about motive. Take a listen to our cut 7.
It's fair to say that of June of 2021 and the months after, the indebtedness to Palmetto State Bank from Alec Murdaugh was very, very large.
Yes, sir.
And it's fair to say it also had charged off loans in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If it had come out at any particular time from, let's say, 2010 on up to June of 2021, or at any time, that Alec Murdaugh had been stealing money from his partners or stealing money from his clients, would this bank have continued to loan him money?
No, sir.
Okay, money, money, money. Now take a listen to Chris Wilson on the stand in our cut 1.
September the 3rd, 2021, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when Mr. Lee Cope called me. The first question he asked me was I still holding $792,000 in my firm? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, we need to get that money paid to us. They had discovered a check that I think I remember him telling me that was from me to Alec in the firm, and that they had discovered that Alec was stealing money from the firm and from clients. The next morning I tried to call him. He called me back and said he would meet me in Alameda at his mom and daddy's house. Told me that he had had a drug problem, that he was addicted to opioids. He told me that he had been stealing money. I was so mad. I'd loved the guy for so long. And I probably still loved him a little bit, but I was so mad.
Kelly Skin, describe that moment in the courtroom.
Watching Chris Wilson testify against his once best friend from law school, they were even roommates at one point, was absolutely heartbreaking. At one point, he needed to take a break and compose himself on the stand. And when he left, Alec Murdaugh was staring at him, waiting for him to look over. This is his former best friend. He just wants to look at him. And Chris Wilson looks down at the ground, would not make eye contact with Alec Murdaugh, and was sniffling on his way out of court. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And something else we learned from Chris Wilson is after that confrontation that he had with Alec Murdaugh at his parents' house, Chris Wilson walked away from that encounter thinking that Alec Murdaugh was going to kill himself. And not long after that, actually, on Chris Wilson's drive home, he got the call that Alec had been shot.
Wow. To Cheryl McCollum, you know, so often we see, well, what is claimed to have been an attempted murder-suicide, and then somehow it turns out to be just a murder. The thought that Alex Murdaugh would kill himself, I don't see it. He loves himself above everything else. I just don't see it.
It could have been another stunt to engage sympathy. I mean, we saw O.J. Simpson do the same thing. Michael Jackson, you know, he acted like he was going to harm himself as well, or wrote a note. A lot of times it's just to invoke sympathy for people to say, oh, no, this is how upset they are. This is how much, you know, they care about what they did wrong. And sometimes it's just another level of their con.
But this is another insurance scam is what it really was, right? If he didn't commit suicide and somebody shot him, then there'd be a double payout to his son Buster.
Yeah.
But only if it was
not buying, and I'll tell you why. If they really wanted to kill Murdaugh to get that money, Curtis Eddie Smith would have just shot him again. I just don't think that's what happened. I think it was intentionally a miss, a grazing, so people would believe that the same person that killed Paul and Maggie went after Murdaugh. I think that was the whole thing. Because if the deal was shoot me dead, I want my only living son to get that multi-million-dollar life insurance policy, then he would have just shot him again. That did not happen.
She makes like such a valid point. Like, I didn't even think about that until I listened to this podcast earlier today. I was like, wait, hold on a second. And then go on to tell you too, in the South, you guys know how to shoot a gun down there. You're not gonna graze somebody's head. If you're really wanting to shoot somebody and get the life insurance policy for that person to give to their son, then you would have shot him a second time. If you are just now joining us, I haven't really said hello to everybody in a while. Hi, hello. Welcome to the channel. If you could, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That would be great. We are watching Nancy Grace. We're getting caught up with the Murdaugh, Alex Murdaugh's trial, and it will be resuming tomorrow, I'm sure at 9 a.m. I'm not sure. Is that the time that court starts over there? I'm sure it is, but it goes all day. And I'm not even sure who the witnesses are tomorrow, but we will get you caught up until tomorrow. So you guys will be all caught up.
Go ahead, jump in.
So I agree, Nancy. This is the South. We learn about firearms and handling guns when we learn our ABCs. If somebody would have wanted to shoot him dead, he would be dead by now.
Yeah, there were plenty of bullets in that chamber. If Curtis Edward Smith wanted Murdaugh dead, he would have been dead. Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. know, another thing happened just before the judge broke for lunch. To Kelly Skien, Fox Nation producer, joining us, just coming out of the courtroom. There were no fingerprints at all on the gun or the phone. And I'm talking about Paul's phone. And I find that very odd because Paul had been on his phone right up till the time of his murder.
Yeah, Nancy, think about a phone. It's in our hands all day, every day. There are fingerprints all over it. And today we heard from a fingerprint expert that there was not that there wasn't any fingerprints on his phone, but there was nothing that he could pull off of it. So that strikes me as very odd. He also didn't find any usable fingerprints on any of the guns that he was given. And something that I want to keep an eye on is, if you remember, when Alec Murdaugh was being interviewed by police in the car, he asked police if anybody had gotten fingerprints off of Maggie's phone. So fingerprints are definitely on the top of Alec Murdaugh's mind.
Another thing about the phone, Kelly, and for right now, I'm talking about Paul Murdaugh's phone. Where was Paul Murdaugh's phone discovered?
Unfortunately, I did see a picture of this, and Paul Murdaugh's phone is on the center of his thigh, very carefully placed there. And as we know from Alec Murdaugh, he says he's the one who placed it there after trying to turn Paul Murdaugh's body over to see if he could find anything or get find a pulse on Paul. So at a minimum, you would kind of expect for Alec Murdaugh's fingerprints to be on Paul's phone since he admittedly touched it.
Let me ask you something, Kelly. Would you please say that again? Murdaugh says he touched Paul's body, and then in the middle of seeing your child dead, you're worried about where you're going to put his cell phone?
Yes, and Alec Murdaugh admittedly says that he tried to turn Paul Murdaugh's body over to see if he could get a pulse on him. In the process, Paul Murdaugh's phone popped out of his pocket, and Alec, in his own words, picked that phone up and put it back on Paul's thigh. And that is the phone that fingerprint analysts...
There's no way you check for a pulse with somebody who doesn't have half their head. That's ridiculous.
Agree.
And there's no way that his phone just popped up out of his pocket. Your phone does not pop out of your pocket when you are shot dead. It doesn't do that. That's just insane to even think that way. But world's dumbest criminals, that we should maybe put a whole skit together, like a whole, I swear they all get caught over the littlest, like he couldn't stop committing crimes. That was his problem. He was a serial criminal. He could not stand to not be committing a crime, whether it was doing drugs or stealing money from people at the same time, as doing his drugs, that, keeping all of that from his wife, his children, the town, and then all of his other, 70 some crimes that he has against him, almost 100 crimes, I believe. I mean, he's done some dumb things during his trip in trial. And he doesn't cry very well. So he needs to get that under control, because if you're going to be on trial for your life, and you would think that you'd be crying real tears, or don't cry at all, don't do that. But I do feel really bad for his wife, knowing that. Either way, it doesn't matter who would have went first. The other person would have known that the other person, just passed away, just died or got killed, and they were running for their lives. So either way you look at it, but it is terrifying to know that was a mother.
And Kelly, wasn't there blood on the inside of Paul Murdaugh's pocket?
There was blood on the inside of his pocket. There was a pool of blood underneath his body. So how this phone is clean, I'm not quite sure.
Cheryl McCollum, I'm a forensic expert. Weigh in.
I can tell you, the phone is clean, just like Alec Murdaugh's hands are clean, because they never touched the blood. He didn't check for a pulse. He didn't cradle his child. He didn't grab him and hug him. He didn't say a prayer over him or nothing else.
There's no
Never
way.
I hear you jumping in, Dale Carson. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no way.
I'm just going to pause that for a second, because I also think that they would know if the officers would know if the ground was disturbed around the victims' bodies. as if somebody was, going around going around them, trying to like cradle them or move them to see if they were okay. If you come up on a scene like that, you're probably going to run to them and see if they're okay, even though, like, that's what I would do. Even though in my mind, you could clearly see that they're not okay. But I think I would still be running towards them to see. That's just something I think I would do. And I'm just wondering why he didn't get any, like, why they're not, like, the blood isn't just, maybe the blood's not disturbed around them, where maybe it's just like a pulling. But I just don't understand how he could take the phone out of his pocket and then put it on his thigh and just walk away from his kid. Like, there's your phone. Don't forget that now. And I also find it a little humorous. This is the humor. This is like the dark humor in me, that Snapchat, again, is going to probably help solve and speak for these victims. And another really high profile case. Snapchat, if y'all didn't like Snapchat, you better get Snapchat. Because apparently it's solving crimes around here. Like Delphi. And then now this case, there's all of a sudden there's a video of them in the dog kennels, a Snapchat video. And that Alec Murdaugh, that he looked through that whole phone probably. He probably looked through that phone camera. He saw that camera roll and he was like, oh, he didn't even send him a video. Or he didn't take any pictures tonight. Thinking, he looked through it and he didn't look through his Snapchat reel. So, man, I wonder what he was thinking when that video popped up. Like, could you imagine? Just to be a little, like a fly in his head, because you have to be like in his head to know. But
that you would examine your son when that part of their skull is missing and they've been clearly shot with a shotgun. Checking for the pulse is a ridiculous impulse. I've seen these things happen before. People who love a child or a person who's injured, they do exactly what Cheryl said. They grab them, they shake them to try to bring them back to life, and that puts blood all over the individual who is trying to hold the deceased loved one. And so that process probably never occurred, and just because he's a lawyer doesn't mean he knows how to perform the perfect crime.
Joining me is former U.S. Marshal Service International Investigator Chief Inspector Irv Brandt. Irv, what do you make of what you're hearing? Because I believe that as soon as the jury comes back from lunch, Paul Greer, Special Agent Paul Greer, is going to make an analysis and compare what he finds at the scene, cartridges, tool markings, to other cartridges there on the scene, and definitively tell the jury that that night, one of the murder weapons was a Murdaugh family gun.
It's the nail in the coffin for the defense. They're setting it up. You were talking about it earlier. It takes time to lay the foundation. It's tedious at times, but it's necessary. And then when they come back from lunch, this is where the hammer drops. They're going to put it all together, and the jury's going to see it, for what it is. You start piecing it together, and you see it a little bit at a time, Then the picture becomes larger and larger, and this is what it's all leading up to.
I'm still not over the wardrobe change from yesterday, where we see Alex Murdaugh in one outfit in the afternoon, and then immediately after the murders, he has on a very pristine white t-shirt. There's a wardrobe change in there somewhere, and coincidentally, in between the wardrobe change, a double murder went down. I'd be curious to find out if the clothing on the left of the screen has ever been found. But guys, another son, in addition to Buster Murdaugh, lost his mother. And of course, I'm talking about Gloria Satterfield's son, the housekeeper that, by some accounts, was pushed to her death at the Murdaugh home By other accounts, she somehow stumbled down the steps and died. Take a listen to painful testimony on the stand in our Cut 8.
Did your family advise you that there was some media reporting about a settlement in the case?
Yes.
All right. And at that time, had you heard anything from Alec or Corey or Chad or anybody about a settlement in the case?
No.
Did you make a phone call to Alec?
Yes.
All right. And what month was that in?
I believe the last time I talked to him was in June of 21.
Around the time of the murders?
Yes.
And what did you ask him?
I can't believe what I asked him, but it was still making progress and be ready to settle, by the end of the year.
Did he tell you that they had already gotten a settlement for $500,000 and $5,000?
No.
Did he tell you that they had already gotten a settlement for $3.8 million?
No.
Had he ever told you that there was an umbrella policy for $5 million?
No.
Did you give him permission to steal your money?
No.
You've come to find out that there was a settlement under the umbrella policy for $3.8 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a large proportion of that was diverted by Alec Murdaugh. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever get 1 cent from Alec Murdaugh when he was still, before all of this happened?
No.
Did you see those empty chairs behind the prosecutor?
I think I'm going to answer Isabel's question. She said, what did Gloria know to get her pushed? So when I was thinking about this earlier, she was been involved with that family for 25 years, I think they said. So she probably knew everything. She probably knew more than they thought she knew. Especially if Miss Gloria just kind of was, if she didn't, depending on her personality, if she was more of a person that didn't talk very much, but got to know the family, kind of observe from afar. Or if she was that person that was, all up in their business and knew what was going on. I think either way, she knew what was going on. Being a housekeeper and being a nanny to their boys, she knew everything. She knew their fights. She knew their likes. She knew their everything. I'm assuming so. It's pretty crazy that the way that she died is very suspicious. And I heard they are going to bring her back up and try to do more testing. I think to see exactly how she died. I don't know why they didn't do that to begin with, but we must have. Because that was in the beginning of their, his crimes. I think that they didn't really look too much about it. And maybe Paul or Buster told her something. You know what I mean? With her being with the kids all the time, maybe that's what it was. Maybe, who knows? But I do know that death is very suspicious, and I'm glad that they are, going to do more testing and stuff, and we'll find out, I'm sure. And I think that her kids deserve to know. I'm sure that they'd want to know the truth if there is any, either way.
Her 50s, I believe she had a whole life in front of her. It just falls out of the blue after 20 years of working there, falls down the steps and dies. And when you hear Paul Murdaugh on the phone, he sounds ice cold. There you go. There is Michael with his mother, Miss Gloria. And he just looks so wounded on the stand, Kelly, to lose his mother and then find out the lawyer that they trusted screwed them over but good to the tune of at least $4.35 million and a possible $9.35 million. Took it all himself and spent it.
Talk about heartbreaking, Nancy. This man's mother was also referred to as Paul Murdaugh and Buster Murdaugh's second mother. Gloria Satterfield was with them as the nanny and as the housekeeper, and her own son, after she dies, does not know that his family has gotten any money until reading it in the news. Not 1 cent.
They're millionaires, Kelly.
And we learned today that we've already known this, but what we heard in court today was that Alec Murdaugh used that Satterfield settlement money to pay off his loans at Palmetto State Bank.
It just turns my stomach how people get taken advantage of, how the rich and the powerful take advantage of those less cunning than they are, and they never have a voice. They didn't even realize they were millionaires. But Murdaugh had taken it all and was using it for his own expenses, his own bad loans he couldn't pay back. And from what I understand, there was an extremely strong bond between Gloria Satterfield and this son, Michael Satterfield. And when I listen, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, because you've listened to it too, the 911 call when Maggie and Paul were calling 911 about Gloria falling to her death, I remember Paul, I'm pretty sure I remember he said, this is a lady that works for us. This is the woman that helped raise him, for Pete's sake. The woman that works for us. Do you remember that, Cheryl McCollum?
Vaguely, but again, it goes toward where he thinks this person's station is. They obviously felt that way. He did anyway. So when you look at who you're going to steal from and who you're just not going to care about, their children, it goes right with, this story that we've heard from the beginning. He doesn't care about anybody but himself.
Nancy, let me mention
mention
something about the crime scene. The fact that shotgun that is purportedly going to be used to show connection to the shotgun shells that killed Paul, the fact that shotgun was not discovered there at the actual crime scene indicates that somebody took it back and put it away where it ordinarily would be found later. And the only person to have access to that house after all of this was one person.
Alex Murdaugh, neither weapon has been found, has been recovered. Those weapons are long gone. Brant, I was about to ask you, you've not only worked with the U.S. Marshal Service and the DOJ, but you have sat by while many a jury is struck. And I guarantee you, that jury is not packed full of millionaires like Alex Murdaugh. They are people like our families, workers that typically work for somebody else. And they haven't heard one word about all the millions that Murdaugh gorged himself on, other people's money. And it all came to a head. Did you hear Satterfield state? I called him and the lawyer says, wasn't this right before the murders? And he says, yes. And I was asking him about that settlement. I read about it in the paper. It was all coming to a head, Irv.
Nancy, the answer to all questions is money. We know this. That's where the trail leads. It's really going to depend on what the court allows in on this testimony of bad acts by the defendant. When the defense opens the door and the state walks through and can start bringing this type of evidence in, and it shows just the amount of greed, and it's always the answer, every single time. It's always about money. And they'll say it's about money in this case.
Kelly Skian, is it true that the Murdaugh family was absent when the jury was absent, even though Murdaugh was in there?
That's right, Nancy. I found that very strange. Yesterday and today, only Alec Murdaugh's sister was there when the jury wasn't present. And then right before the jury is brought in each day, his brothers, his son, and his son's girlfriend file right back into the court.
Now, Kelly, you were with me when we left the courthouse and we were looking for a place to eat dinner. It was getting late. And we came upon people that told us the Murdaugh family is leaving, I guess, during lunch or at least after court and staying at some mansion that's costing several $1,000s a day. And I guess eating lunch there away from prying eyes where they can powwow about what's going down. So clearly they knew there was nobody to impress. The jury wasn't going to be there. And they didn't show up just for Alex Murdaugh, who was there, but only came in moments before the jury came in. Am I understanding this correctly?
That's right. And I've also noticed that Alec Murdaugh's demeanor is very different when the jury is there compared to when they are not there. So when the jury is not in the room and the prosecution is going through all of these alleged financial crimes, Alec Murdaugh is pointing at the display screen, conferring with his lawyers, passing notes back and forth. When the jury is there, his head is down and he rocks back and forth and he's very focused. But when they are not there, I see a different Alec Murdaugh.
Has he ever shed one tear when the jury's not there, Kelly?
Not that I can see, Nancy. Not that I can see. However, when Chris Wilson was on the stand yesterday, yes, when Chris Wilson was on the stand yesterday, Alec Murdaugh was very upset.
Did he cry?
Yes, he was wiping his eyes with tissues.
And that was with no jury present.
Correct. But I think what we have to think about here is this is a personal relationship that Alec Murdaugh has had since the 80s, unraveling in front of his eyes. He hadn't seen Chris Wilson since that conversation at his parents' house. He texted Chris Wilson. He wrote a letter to Chris Wilson. So I'm not sure exactly what those tears were for, but I definitely did see them yesterday when the jury wasn't there. However, I haven't seen them through the other financial crimes that are being laid out.
He knows Chris Wilson, has known him for years and years and years. And Chris Wilson himself was tearing up on the stand over the betrayal by one of his best friends, Alex Murdaugh. I could see that. Well, okay, here's 2 words of wisdom to the defense. Number 1, teach Harpootlian, the defense lawyer, not to yawn in front of the jury and teach him how to use an iPhone. And number 2, be prepared to give Alex Murdaugh the elbow when you need him to turn on the waterworks in front of the jury. And maybe the jury's not watching everything, but guess what? We are. We're getting ready to go back in the courtroom. Thank you for being with us during the lunch break. Let's head straight back in and see who the next witness will be. Thank you for being with us. Nancy Grace signing off. Goodbye, friends.
Okay, so yeah, that was Nancy from Friday. She was from Friday afternoon. Let me see. About to say, is there another one? Because she does that. She'll get like sneaky and sneak one in on me. But I don't think that there is. I wonder if she was only there for that 1 week or if she's going to be there for like more than 1 week. But she was just reporting there from last week. But she said that this was just the first half of Friday. So she should have a second half of one. Yeah, because Teresa did say that the testimony, the ammunition guy did say that it ended up being the same bullets from the same gun. So maybe that's the other half of the day that we missed. Yeah, Nancy doesn't mess around in court. She's definitely taking notes and definitely knowing. Yeah, I don't think she will until tomorrow either. I want to hear the second half of this because I've heard this twice now, so I want to hear it. Oh, I forgot my camera was off. But yeah, when we talked through it, I think it was a pretty good Nancy Grace episode. They went over a lot of things. I mean, like them having both of the weapons there makes sense. You know, if they were hog hunting or whatever they were doing, shooting hogs, that would make sense to have 2 weapons there. So that kind of, made me think, a little bit. Because I was wondering how they got both guns there. There's just, oh my gosh. So yeah, there's so much going on. So this case will be resuming tomorrow. I guess they're going to see at 9:30 if the financial crimes, someone was saying if the financial crimes are going to be allowed to be presented into trial, which I'm assuming that the judge will let it. But I mean, I kind of feel bad if he has to sit there and listen to all of these crimes. The whole, 90 or 80, 70 some, whatever he's almost 100 charges he has. Like, I'd hate for that one judge to have to be like listening to all of that. His whole demeanor is off. He is a very odd man. He didn't, for the things that he said on the 911 call, to the things that he said in the police car, to the things that he's done and said up until now, is off. I haven't heard him, really cry for his family other than what we've seen in the courtroom, and that looks like an act. The interview that he did with the police in the car was a total bogus act. That really just got on my nerves. Him in the car really got on my nerves, the way he was talking. Just, I couldn't take it. Yeah, greed, money, and power can turn the best of them sour. You are so right. You're so right. I am exhausted tonight, guys. I have to go to the doctor early in the morning, so I'm going to jump off here soon. I have to like go an hour and a half to the doctor. So it's a long truck. It's a long way there. But if you haven't got familiar with this case, hopefully you guys are kind of caught up now. We've done lives all week over, I think, Alex Murdaugh, except for maybe one day we took off. We took off the last 2 lives were for Idaho 4. We did 2 lives over that. And I guess there's some more news that just came out, so I have to do some research. So we'll have to see what's going on. I will be on Tuesday for sure. I may take tomorrow off because I have a doctor's appointment, like I said. I may not feel very good. But where I'm going, they have the best food ever. So it's my old hometown. So I'm going to get some good donuts, some good tacos while I'm there. If you know me and you're from there, say hi, I guess, if you have to. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking about that part. I'm just kidding. No, so we're going back. We're going back to my old hometown tomorrow. So maybe I'll take it's a very long haul for a doctor, but it's like as a doctor you just always have, it's that doctor. That means that has a little special place in your heart. And it's an unexpected doctor's visit, so I'm not looking forward to it. I don't like unexpected things. I don't like change. I don't like unexpected things happening. So, with that said, they're gonna, bandage me up, kiss me, and go, "You're fine," and then I'll be back. I'll be back Tuesday. But yeah, Tristan Bailey's trial. Yep, you're right, Teresa. I was gonna actually say that. I forgot about that. I didn't forget, but I did forget almost. Yeah, he stabbed that poor girl, Bailey. Wasn't her name Bailey or Tristan Bailey? What was her name? So her name was Bailey, right? Yeah. So I heard about that like last year, I believe, when it happened. And then I didn't do true crime then. So I don't know a lot about that case. I think I watched a documentary over it. And that was like really it. And I saw a couple of news clips of him in the back of the police car and things. But I didn't really know the case that well. So that's one I have to get familiar with. So I will have to do that. It'll give me things to read up on. But I do have some updates coming for you guys this week. I have Michael Vaughn update, Leilani Simon for the Quentin Simon case. I have, an update for her. Idaho 4, well, I'm sure I'll have an update for that one too. And of course, Alec Murdaugh. Man, I'm losing my voice, I think, guys. I was like this last night too. I'm going to have to get some hot cocoa. Yeah, Core TV will be there tomorrow. I remember that. I remember seeing that. I think I was watching Vinny or something. He said he was going to be there. So he will be there. But they will be there covering that live. And I'm sure that we will be here covering it in the evening times, just talking about the case and discussing it. If that's something that you guys want to see me talk about, let me know in the comments below. If this is on replay, #replay and #yes is something we want to see. And I will do that. But I love you guys. You guys have a good evening, and I will see you guys all in the next live. Bye, guys.